This is TWiT.
Now, one of the reasons I wanted you to come into the studio is I knew you would probably bring some fun with you.
I always bring whiskey with me.
He brings the fun.
It's a rule.
What do you got?
I got a find, no question about it. You want to grab the bottle there? We can tell the story. So, I mean, we've been going through a bit of a story arc, even with Micah when you were off and having some fun.
Precious.
I ran across some really terrible whiskeys. There's a big wave of new whiskey companies coming up, and after having some bad experiences studying some really bad new whiskey companies, I wanted to have a good experience, and this is one of them.
It's Irish. I like Irish whiskey.
It's Clonakilty. Clonakilty.
Clonakilty.
It's so weird. It couldn't even be a technology product name, right?
It could be.
But Clonakilty is a town in Ireland, on the very southern edge of Ireland,
on the Atlantic Ocean,
in Cork County. And they were best known for some of the best black pudding you could get anywhere. But that's changing now because of the Scully family. So the Scully family owns a barley farm outside of Clonakilty, which they've owned for arguably 200 years, 9 generations. But they didn't get into whiskey until 2016. So they are one of the new age whiskey makers, longtime family. They have some interesting ideas about how to approach whiskey a little differently. They built their facility out, was up and running by 2019, which means there's no whiskey in there from them, right? 2019 is too young.
Right.
It takes longer than that. In fact, most likely they're buying their whiskey at this point from the new Middleton distillery, which we talked about when we did the Irish episode a while back. That is the distillery that makes Jameson, Tullamore Dew, Redbreast, all of the spots, green, yellow.
Some of my favorite Irish whiskeys.
Very good whiskeys.
Yeah.
They did hire a master distiller, a fellow by the name of Paul Corbett, who worked on Teeling and Tipperary, which are both Irish whiskeys. So he kind of knows what he's doing. They do have good equipment. They've got the triple pot stills, but their big play has been to build a rack house right on the sea cliffs. So 200 feet above the Atlantic, there's this gigantic rack house, and they do the pallet style. So they're using pallets with standing barrels. And so their initial releases, and I'm going to focus on the U.S. releases so you have a chance to get them. These are all going to be Middleton whiskeys. And then what they've done is they finished them at this new rack house. So maybe it's got a little hint of sea air, but consistently you'll see the same descriptions where it is bourbon aged, but something finished. So the double oak, which is about $50 that you can get here in the U.S., is finished in a different kind of oak barrel. The port cask, spent its last year in a port barrel. These are all the things that a young distillery could do. Right, they're buying 6, 7, 8-year-old whiskey from the distillery, from the rack houses, which have all been aged in used bourbon casks, and then they're doing a year in their own rack house to give it a bit of its own character and start to, while they are making their own whiskey, running their stills as hard as they can, and starting to rack new make, so that a few years from now we're going to see this. So we get a chance to see Clonakilty in its transition period. They're also making a vodka and a gin, because those you can make in a day, right? Like those don't need aging. So they're trying to get a bit of pipeline of income while they are letting their whiskey that they're making themselves mature.
So this is not yet from their barley field.
No.
But it is from
not yet. This
pretty darn good whiskey maker's barley field.
I mean, I've got nothing bad to say about New Middleton. Those guys know what they're doing. They make some very, very nice whiskey.
I like the whale tail on the label. That's
and
cool.
they are big on supporting sea life. They make contributions to some conservatory organizations. They talk about some stuff. Like I was reading some of the details of the way they're making their whiskey, and you know that when it comes off the still. On that third distillation, Irish whiskey tends to be very high, 87, 88, even pushing 90. And so you don't barrel it that high. It's too much of a solvent. It'll rip stuff out of the wood. It'll make everybody sad. And so you cut it with water. You'll take it down into the 60, 65 range before you put it in the barrel to start lifting some flavors from the barrel. And so they've got this idea they call gentle cut, where they're introducing water slowly to it, I guess. I mean, I don't know why the whiskey would care, but they went, I study
Be
bottles.
gentle with my whiskey.
I study bottles pretty carefully. You see, they even put right on it.
It's a gentle cut. And now it's chill filtered.
Yeah. Well, non-chill filtered.
Non-chill.
That's removing the flocculation from the product, right? So, I mean, this cask number 3512 was probably that's the barrel that they got from Middleton,
right?
And which obviously had been aged in bourbon for X number of years.
It's not cask strength, though.
Well, it's at 52.4.
It's a little high.
So that's pretty high. So I think they cut it. They came out of the barrel in whatever state it was in. They threw it in a rum cask. Now they don't specify exactly for how long, but probably a year. That's kind of typical.
It's not very dark. It's kind of a light finish.
But that also means they didn't put any caramel color in it.
Oh, I like that, frankly.
And I mean, you'll get more color if you put it in a port cask because the port imparts some color to it.
It looks like rum.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's kind of rum-ish, isn't it?
Like a light rum, yeah.
So I hear there's some Glencairns around.
I think we could give it a shot.
So there are 3 whiskeys that you can get in the U.S. I mentioned the double oak and also the port cask. They also have what they call a single malt Bordeaux. So they finished it in Bordeaux barrels.
Nice.
This is none of those.
What is this?
This one you cannot buy. This is what's called a private barrel select. Oh. I got this from a specialty shop, which has done the rum finish. They are partnering with a lot of other distilleries and breweries to make special editions in the U.S. to try and get introduced to the U.S. market early with these special editions before their main production starts. So they're doing all the marketing things to establish a market. But let's see what we got. Skull. I got.
It's an Irish,
kind of a cereally nose.
I like it. That's my tasting note. Oh, I like it.
It's yummy. No bite on the front.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
Just came in there. I almost got a bit of fruit going on, like a little pear.
Very smooth.
Yeah, very light.
Yeah.
And then a heat going down. Like when it gets down there, you're like, oh, I've drank whiskey. Not only that, but I've drank 54%. This is remarkably gentle.
Yes,
for
surprisingly
54.
gentle for that. Yeah. It's quite good.
We're not prepped for this, 52.4. I would normally at this moment take a little bit of water, maybe 2 drops, put it in there and see what happens.
Gently.
Yeah, just to see where it goes.
Well, we can do that now because it's over.
Because the show is over. So I got...
Sorry, Paul. He looks so left out.
Clonakilty is new into the U.S. market. You can find a few bottles around. They're running in the $50 range.
It's quite good. For 50, I think that's great.
Knowing that it's actually one of the new Middleton whiskeys, which are all very good, and they've done their own finishing.
Me of Middleton. It definitely has that.
It has that kind of little Jameson, although I'd say less heat than a Jameson, honestly.
It's quite good.
Tasty. As much as I always thought I'd only introduce to whiskeys that I loved. I have now brought a few to the table that I'm like, don't buy this. But this is one I'm like, this is new to me.
I would
think
keep
it's
this
excellent.
around.
I think it's very
keep this
drinkable.
in the house for anybody who came over and wanted to.
And it makes me happy that there are new whiskey makers making good new whiskey.
No kidding. And when they start actually making their own whiskey,
we'll have to see what they make.
Yeah. Very curious. Would that make a difference if they have their own barley and their own distillation?
Well, I think there's no substitute for 5 years in a barrel in their warehouse.
It's the finishing that really matters.
So the finishing makes a big difference, but the Isleys, because they're so close to the sea, consistently they talk about those sort of salty notes, those kinds of flavors, as opposed to the Highlands that are further from the sea.
Right.
This is most Irish warehouses aren't near the sea. This is pretty much the only one that close to the ocean. So they may have something unique.
Sea air, and it's consistent temperature probably.
It's stabler, right?
Yeah.
So they have a possibility.
Yeah.
But it's we're 5 years away from knowing.
No peanut butter flavor, though, Paul. I'm sorry.
It's bad. I can't taste a chocolate anywhere.
I don't taste cinnamon. It just tastes like whiskey. Okay.
Disturbingly like whiskey. He's hung up, hasn't he? He's so annoyed with us now.
He's so pissed off. He says, I have nothing to do with it. That's Richard Campbell. He brings whiskey whenever he comes, and it's always nice to see you. It's been a while. You haven't been in the new studio.
No, it's the first time in the new studio. Last time we saw each other in person, we were on a cruise ship.
Oh, the cruise. I forgot. Yeah. Where we all got COVID. That was fun.
Including my wife. Yeah.
Thank you, Richard. So nice to see you. Safe trip home. Not too much of the Clonakilty before you leave, although you can have lunch in the other room. I
appreciate that.